You will have noted that I did divide the exercises existing in the Gurdjieff tradition, as far as we know, given by Gurdjieff, into two categories: those that I refer to as psychological exercises and those that are in fact structural or energetic exercises. The first to show psychological qualities that in fact we don't have, and the second to show anomalies that exist in the structure and the energetic makeup of human beings as we experience ourselves and our own bodies. Now, the reason for dividing them up in this way was to show that this is not correct. Now, I would suspect that the majority of those in the Gurdjieff tradition take the exercises that Gurdjieff has given, whatever the kind they are, however you understand them, as essentially psychological exercises. Now, in dividing them up, these exercises up into psychological exercises and also structural energetic exercises, is to start to lead you away from this and lead you to the fact that of the reality of the situation, that all the exercises that Gurdjieff gave concern the structure and the energies of human beings, and not a single exercise was given by Gurdjieff that can be considered psychological. Now, in particular, I need to draw together a couple of talks that I've made quite recently and a mass of talks that I've made over the last 10 or 15 years concerning what appear to be the psychological qualities in man, and to show that they are in fact exercises to show the structure and energetic makeup of man instead of psychological properties. And this concerns particularly this idea of the two kinds of consciousness that the ordinary man exhibits. In our ordinary waking state, we are in a state of consciousness that Gurdjieff said to Ouspensky is not a true state of consciousness. It's a state called waking sleep. We are asleep, Gurdjieff started to say, but this contains the implications that we can wake up, which is not at all true. The mind that wakes up is not the mind that is asleep. So Gurdjieff quickly moved on and called this waking sleep. That is to say, we are awake in our ordinary state, in our usual consciousness, but we retain qualities analogous to sleep. And Gurdjieff pointed out that we do at times have a different state of consciousness, completely different state of consciousness, consciousness of self, or as Ouspensky came to call it, self-remembering. Now this appears to be about psychology, states of consciousness. But in fact, what Gurdjieff was showing to Ouspensky is, as Gurdjieff, explained in his own book, Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, again and again in his own writings, man has two consciousnesses having nothing in common. That is to say, two conscious minds. This is a structural truth about man. Each of those two each of those two conscious minds, let me get this clear for you. Each of those conscious minds has, as a consequence, associated with it, coming from it, a state of consciousness appropriate to it. So our ordinary conscious mind, which Gurdjieff points out again and again as a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind, has a state of consciousness, waking sleep, which of course is therefore a false, fictitious and unreal state of consciousness. We're not truly conscious. We are awake but retain qualities analogous to sleep. But we also have in us, Gurdjieff writes, our true conscious mind. It remains in us in an isolated state because it doesn't have the energies in the ordinary man for its manifestation. But when it does approach us, when it does manifest, we have the state of consciousness appropriate to this true conscious mind. consciousness of self, that Ouspensky called self-remembering. So we have two states of consciousness, and Gurdjieff was giving exercises to Ouspensky and others that are now enshrined in myth within the Gurdjieff tradition, and it would be easy to take these as if they were exercises about psychology. And I think this is what happens in the Gurdjieff tradition. So it is to lead you away from this viewpoint that I have tried to move away from the idea that these are exercises about psychology in a gentle manner, to show that in fact these are exercises about the structure, about the energies of human beings. That is, we have two conscious minds. And the fact that we have two states of consciousness is a consequence of this fact. So these are not exercises to differentiate between two states of consciousness, although they appear to be that way. That is to say, they appear to be exercises concerned with psychology. We have two states of consciousness, waking sleep and consciousness of self, or self-remembering. But in fact, what Gurdjieff was teaching is not a psychological truth. That is a consequence. Gurdjieff was teaching a structural and energetic truth. That is, we have two conscious minds having nothing in common. We are living in the wrong one, and so we are in a state of consciousness as a consequence of that, known as waking sleep. But our true conscious mind, structurally, remains in us. It lacks the energy to manifest as it should, but if it does approach and it does perhaps begin to manifest, then we have a state of consciousness in consequence. Consciousness of self, or self-remembering. So the states of consciousness are consequences of a structural situation, of an energetic situation. And therefore the exercises that Gurdjieff was giving to differentiate between waking sleep and a second state of consciousness that exists at times in us, consciousness of self, these exercises were not exercises of psychology as they might appear to be, but were in fact exercises to show a structural truth, an energetic truth about human beings, that we have two conscious minds having nothing in common, and we are living in the wrong one. So what I'm leading you towards is a realization that the actual exercises that Gurdjieff was giving, although they may appear to be exercises of psychology or psychological exercises, they are not. They are in fact exercises about the structure of the human being, know thyself, the structure of the human being, and the energetic makeup of the human being, from which our psychology is a consequence. So these are exercises that Gurdjieff is giving to demonstrate structural realities, energetic realities about our human situation. And this is what Gurdjieff will refer to as know thyself. We're not talking know thyself about psychological qualities, aspects of our character, what we had for breakfast, or anything like that. We are talking of know thyself. It's a structural and energetic truths. That's what we're looking for. And this is linked very closely to what Gurdjieff said, man is a machine, trying to indicate that you do not study a machine by looking at its psychological qualities. You look at its structure, you look at its energies, you look at how it works. So in this sense, in contrast to all I've said previously, saying that man is not a machine, the idea that man is a machine is absolute nonsense, which it is. Literally, it is absolute nonsense. And yet Gurdjieff was clearly using this to indicate this aspect of his teaching, that it is not a teaching about psychology at all. It is a teaching about structure and about energies Know thyself, know the machine, look at the structure, look at the energetic makeup. And this is what the exercises that Gurdjieff gave are about.